My name is Daniel Carter, and 2 years ago I spent nearly every dollar I had on a gas station nobody wanted. My father called it the dumbest decision of my life. My younger brother laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink, and my mother spent 3 days trying to convince me to back out of the deal. Looking back, I understand why. The place looked terrible. Half the fuel pumps didn't work, the roof leaked, the convenience store shelves were almost empty. The parking lot was cracked and covered with weeds. Even the station sign barely lit up at night. If you drove past it after sunset, it looked abandoned. The previous owner had been trying to sell it for almost 2 years. Nobody wanted it. Then I showed up. But before I tell you why I bought that gas station, you need to understand what happened inside my family. Because the gas station wasn't the beginning of the story, it was the result of it. My father owned one of the largest construction companies in the state. For over 30 years, he built warehouses, office parks, and industrial facilities. The company was worth millions. Growing up, everyone assumed my younger brother Jason and I would eventually take over together. At least that's what I believed. I spent years working for the company, long hours, weekend projects, emergency calls in the middle of the night. I learned every part of the business. I wasn't looking for praise, I was building a future, or so I thought. The problem was Jason. Jason was my father's favorite. Everyone knew it, nobody talked about it. If Jason closed one contract, he was a genius. If I closed three, it was expected. If Jason made a mistake, someone else got blamed. If I made a mistake, it became a lesson about responsibility. For years, I ignored it. I told myself hard work would eventually matter. Then came the board meeting that changed everything. The company had just landed its biggest project of the year. I had spent 6 months negotiating the deal. 6 months, countless meetings, late nights, travel, stress. Then during the announcement meeting, my father stood up and congratulated Jason for securing the contract. The room applauded. Jason smiled, and nobody corrected the lie. Not one person. I sat there staring at the table. For the first time in my life, I realized something. The competition had been decided before it ever started. I was never going to win. That night, I resigned. My father didn't stop me. Jason didn't care. And somehow that hurt more than anything else. For the next several weeks, I drove around looking for opportunities. Not jobs, opportunities. Something I could build myself. Something nobody could take credit for. Then I found the gas station. It sat beside Highway 47. The highway wasn't particularly busy anymore. Most drivers used a newer route that had opened years ago. At first glance, the location seemed terrible, but something caught my attention. Construction equipment, lots of it, several miles away, survey crews, engineers, state vehicles. Something was happening. I started asking questions, researching public records, reviewing transportation documents. And then I discovered something interesting, a proposed highway expansion project. Nothing officially approved yet. But the plans were there. If it happened, Highway 47 would become a major transportation route again, and my gas station would sit directly beside one of the main access points. It was a gamble, a huge gamble, but it made sense, so I bought it. Every dollar I had, gone. When my family found out, they treated it like a joke. Jason posted a picture online beside a gas pump. His caption read, "Some people inherit opportunities, others inherit bad decisions." Everyone knew he was talking about me. The comments were brutal. People laughed, Former coworkers laughed. Even family friends laughed. I ignored all of it, because while they were laughing, I was working. The first 6 months were miserable. The roof had to be repaired. The fuel system needed upgrades. Electrical problems appeared almost every week. There were days when I questioned my sanity, days when I wondered if everyone else was right. Then things started changing, slowly. A truck driver stopped by, then another, then 10 more. Word spread that the station was clean, reliable, and open late. Sales increased, not dramatically, just enough to survive. Then came the phone call that changed everything. A transportation official contacted me. The highway expansion had been approved. Construction would begin within months. I hung up the phone and just sat there for almost 10 minutes because I knew what it meant. Everything was about to change. Within a year, traffic tripled, then doubled again. Truck routes shifted. Delivery companies began using the highway. Travelers stopped constantly. My little gas station suddenly became one of the busiest locations in the area. Revenue exploded. I hired employees, expanded the convenience store, added electric vehicle charging stations. Then I purchased the empty property next door. Most people didn't notice, but I had a plan. The land allowed enough space for a restaurant, a truck service center, and additional parking. The expansion transformed the business. Soon local newspapers started writing articles. Business magazines called. People wanted interviews. Apparently, buying a dying gas station and turning it into a successful travel center made for a good story. Then something unexpected happened. My father called. We hadn't spoken much in over a year. His voice sounded different, older, tired. "Can we meet?" he asked. I almost said no, but curiosity won. We met at a restaurant. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he sighed. "The company is struggling." That surprised me. The family business had always seemed untouchable. Then he explained. Several large projects had failed. Costs had increased. Clients were leaving. Competition was growing. And Jason wasn't handling it well. Apparently, being treated like a genius wasn't the same thing as actually being one. For the first time, my father looked uncertain. Then he asked a question I never expected. "Would you consider coming back?" I almost laughed. For years, I had wanted that invitation. Years. Now I didn't. Not because I was angry, because I had moved on. I had built something of my own, something real, something nobody could take away from me. I looked at him and shook my head. No. He nodded slowly, almost like he expected the answer. Then he said something I had waited my entire life to hear. "I was wrong about you." Those 5 words hit harder than I expected. Not because I needed them anymore, because I had stopped needing them. And somehow that made them meaningful. Over the next year, the gap between our businesses grew. My company expanded again, then again. Meanwhile, the family construction company continued shrinking. Eventually, Jason left. The same brother who had mocked me publicly walked away when things became difficult. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, especially my father. A few months later, I received another call, this time from one of the company's lenders. The family business was being sold, 30 years of work, gone. I drove past the old headquarters a week later. The company sign had already been removed. Standing there, I expected to feel satisfaction, revenge, vindication. Instead, I felt nothing, because the story wasn't really about them anymore. It was about me. It was about what happened after everyone decided I was a failure. The truth is, buying that gas station wasn't the smartest decision I ever made. It was simply the first decision I made for myself. My family thought success came from approval, from titles, from inheritance, from being chosen. I learned something different. Real success begins the moment you stop waiting for someone else's permission. 2 years ago, I spent my last dollar on a broken gas station beside a forgotten highway. Everyone laughed. Today, that same property is worth more than the entire company I once dreamed of inheriting. And every time I drive past the station sign, I remember something important. Sometimes the opportunity everyone ignores becomes the opportunity that changes your life.